Today, I want to talk about who the hell is Nick Fuentes. Maybe if you are an American, this might sound very obvious who it is. But as an European, I didn't know who is this guy. I didn't know what's he about. And I recently came across two very interesting podcasts. One with Patrick Bet David, I don't know if you know it, and another with Candace Owens. In this podcast, he shows a little bit about his views, but mainly the trajectory of his opinions. He is now considered a far right. His views has been so extreme that he has even been pushed out of the payment processors and of the banking system. I don't want to get into it now, but I have been investigating a little bit about him, and I want to share two very important points I want you to keep in mind. Thanks to, even though I don't agree with anything that he says, or with the, let's say, the big majority of what he says, he has shown me two things that I think are important. One is that I'm not far right. He is far right. Finally, someone has come so that the people that we're just moderately right, we can look to our right and see someone else. I think in the last decade, the left, by insulting everyone that doesn't agree with them and calling them racist, male chauvinist, whatever the big word is at that time, they actually have helped that the real far right uh, can go undercover and grow undercover because all of them are Nazis. So you don't distinguish the real ones from the fake ones, so to say. And it feels good, to be honest. It feels good because, as I say, if you are a conservative or if you are a Republican, I think you are very used to being scolded publicly, so to say. You are being used to being called insults out loud. And if you're like me, there have been many moments in your life where you have been scared of saying your opinion. And I think that's completely unacceptable. In any case, I'm happy to reaffirm who I am. And I'm not all these words. And I knew since the beginning that I was not all these words. But we are honest with each other and we recognize that being called these type of things for decades really makes you rethink yourself. Am I really that bad for thinking that illegal immigration is literally illegal and should be punished and should not be allowed to break into a country? So that's the first point. Congratulations. We now have the real far right crazy Nazis to our right. Um, the second point I really want to bring to your attention, I think, is extremely important. Freedom of speech. So I'm editing this video and I wanted to add a small point I think I didn't mention or I forgot to mention. The same way as we want the left to criticize the far left, the Antifa crazy violent groups that we all think doesn't belong to the left in a democratic country with freedom of speech, blah, blah, blah. The same way we want them to criticize the far left, we as right wing, we all should agree that we should criticize that far right extremist group. Because at the end, we need to give. We can only demand what we can give. And don't be afraid of criticizing them because they are not us. You you don't need to be a Nazi to be right wing. You don't need to be an extremist, racialist, whatever Nick Fuentes called himself. You don't need to be that in order to be right wing, and that's a very important distinction. If you are like me, you think that freedom of speech is one of the cornerstones of a democracy. You need freedom of speech. I'm not a freedom of speech absolutist. I think that we all should be able to say what we want. The same way we're all able to say things that embarrass ourselves in front of a public or another person. But I think it has limits. So, what would you say are the limits of freedom of speech? This is a very interesting question because if you ask me if even me defending freedom of speech, I agree or not with the fact that Nick Fuentes has been pushed out of the banking system, I will say yes, I completely agree. I completely support it. Why? Because if you ask me, what's the limit? One of the few limits of freedom of speech is its self-preservation. This is one of the limits. I think the same way the argument that I'm in a democracy, but I support authoritarian regimes cannot hold itself, because actually your opinion, if we were in your dream country, you will not be able to say it. You are only able to say that you support authoritarian regimes because we live in a democracy. But for the same reason, I think we all should push away anti-democratic values. We all should do it. We all have work to do here. Many people that don't study history think that the Nazis raised to power in a coup or something. They win elections. Democracies can be destroyed. So we need to put a limit into freedom of speech in order to make sure that it self-preserves over time. Now, I don't want to get into the details if we need to legislate or not to protect freedom of speech. But I will say this. It doesn't matter who you are, if you are far right, far left, middle, conservative, Republican, Democrat, liberal, whatever you are. We all need to push back against not having freedom of speech and against anti-democratic movements like Nick Fuentes or whatever the others they are. If you think that abortion should not be allowed, say it. If you think it should be allowed, say it. If you think that something is not correct in society, say it, fight for it. But at the end of the day, you need to remember something. Independently if your team scores a goal or not, the most important person in the match is not your team, it's not the other team, it's the referee. The referee is the person that keeps us all playing the same game, and is, most importantly, the person that makes us all accept who scores a goal and who wins this time and who will win next time. The danger is not in losing a match, it's not in losing a tournament, it's not in losing 10,000 tournaments. The real problem and the real issue is when someone wants to kill the referee. Because if someone kills the referee and we cannot accept wins or loses, only violence will rise. We have seen that already with Charlie Kirk. This should not be allowed. It should be criticized by everyone. Doesn't matter who you are, what you think. If you are able to say what you think and you enjoy being able to say what you think, independently if you are right or wrong, you need to push back against this. It's extremely important. We have some work to do, but I believe in all of us, and I want to stand for democratic values. This is my first video. I'm not used to speaking into camera, but I think this was a very important message. Thank you.